Hello, everyone, and welcome to our series of Blueprint Labs. This week, we have two awesome guests, Rick Freitas and Shannon Lauder. So thank you guys for joining us. Today's topic is going to be Unity Catalog and SQL Analytics. If you have not been joining us on our series, we'd love to have you be a part of this awesome series that we have. So you can go check out the previous ones on our LinkedIn or on our YouTube page. It's also on our website. Just go to bpcs.com/events. And you can also register for all of our future webinars, workshops, and demos that we have coming up. If we have not met before, my name is Ruthie Senanaika, and I work at Blueprint Technologies. We are a technology solutions company, everything from strategy to execution and so much more. So visit our website, bpcs.com, to learn more. Without further ado, I will pass things along to our team, but just a quick reminder that we would love to entertain any questions that you have regarding this topic. Just add them into the comments, and I will ask them from the speakers throughout the session. So Shannon, take it away.
Awesome. All right. All right, am I sharing my screen now? Perfect. All right, good afternoon. So today we're going to go through a little bit of Unity Catalog, show you what's new, what it's good for, how you can start using it, and then Rick's going to make everything that I tell you useful. He's actually going to show you how you can use some of these features in your day-to-day work when you're querying data. So this it's not really a slide deck, but I'm actually using a notebook as my slide deck. I'm sure we can get this shared out at the end. So if you'd like to play along at home, this will be available to you. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So what is Unity Catalog? Well, you can go to Databricks official documentation and you can look and find out all the details. But in its simplest terms, Unity Catalog is an extension of the Hive Metastore that you've been using really in any Spark environment. So with the Hive Metastore, you've got to have one per every workspace in Databricks. And that's great if you're only running one, maybe two workspaces, but what we're starting to see is some places are actually spinning up a workspace per product or per division. And the problem is there's certain data artifacts that they're going to want to share between these different workspaces. So Databricks came along with the concept of Unity Catalog, elevates their Hive Metastore into multiple metastores. So you turn on Unity Catalog, you get a centralized metastore and centralized user management. So now, instead of having to add users to each and every workspace, you can add all your users to a single group and then grant the group access to workspaces. You're done. The same is true for those tables, schemas, those data artifacts that you're going to register in Unity Catalog. You now have a central place to do that. So just some high-level bullet points. Now you can define these objects once and reuse them. You can follow a central security model. You, as of yesterday, can now start adding tags to these objects and define additional rules. So those of you who are looking for ways of securing PII, PCI, HIPAA, GDPR data, you can now tag individual objects with these tags and define rules to follow on top. So at a high level, how do we organize Unity Catalog? Well, within Unity Catalog, you can define multiple metastores, and you'll define one per region. So if you're in Azure and you have a workspace in East and you have one in North Central, you're going to actually spin up two metastores. Each of these metastores, you can have a collection of catalogs. So catalogs are new. If you come to Databricks from a SQL Server point of view, catalog, think of it as your database, the individual databases on your instance. So under your database or under the catalog, you have a collection of schemas. So these are just groups of objects, just like they were in SQL Server. Then under your schema, you've got tables, views, and volumes. So tables and views are easy enough, but volumes. So if you're setting up a table on top of Delta files, you're good to go. That's easy enough. But what if you want to set up pictures? You want to do analytics on top of pictures. You want to start doing analytics on top of videos. You want to start really pushing Spark to analyze these other data sources. Well, you can wrap that collection of files in a volume and then expose that volume to one or more workspaces. So it's just another way to connect your data to your workspaces. So that skips most all of this information here. If you want to read more, absolutely read here. But there's a few extra things. You can now have, scroll down a little bit more. You can have external connection. Here we go, Lakehouse federations. Let's say you want to set up a connection to SQL Server and you want to expose that connection and be able to query SQL Server tables from inside Databricks. You can enable, it's called Query Federation. You can now enable that through Unity Catalog. If you've got some data in Snowflake and you've got some in Databricks and you need to bring them together to do some of your analysis, you can now set up federations and you can virtualize your data rather than having to integrate your data. So that means you're just referencing a copy, you're not physically moving it in order to work with it. So plenty more details in here. Definitely dig in if you're going to start implementing it, but let's actually start using it in our workspace. So let's come over here. We're going to go to data. And you can see I've already got a collection of catalogs defined. So this Metastore is actually, it's hosted in our East data center. Right now, we only have one workspace wired up to it. But like I said, we could wire up more than one. But let's look at one of these catalogs. So I created a catalog just for this demo. Inside it, I defined a few schemas, bronze, silver, and gold. Anyone who's familiar with the medallion structure will recognize why. We do have default. Think of DBO in SQL Server. Basically, if you don't define a schema for the object you're defining, this is where it's going to land. Information schema, it's very similar to the one you know and love from your relational database systems. So we've got catalog instead of database, but we've got schema, we've got check constraints, columns. If you want to start querying your metadata as you add these objects to your Metastore, you can do that now. And in a later demo, I'm going to show you how you can use this alongside the audit log to find some really interesting things about how people are using your workspaces. So what else do we have in here? Let's close this out. In our bronze section here, I've actually set up a couple of tables that Rick's going to use in a bit. But let's look at airlines. Let's come over here. You can see what notebooks reference this table. You can find workflows, pipelines, dashboards, queries, or if you want to do it graphically, you can see this bronze table actually reads data out of a source volume that I defined. And then later, it's transformed into a silver table. This is all enabled by Unity Catalog. So let's close that out. So how does it get this information? We're going to go back over to our outline. And I'm going to show you a simple notebook that will create a silver table. And I've already run this, so we don't have to wait the 15 minutes for it to process all my data. But in this case, I just wanted to define a silver table as a select statement. And same for my airports, same for flights. I just wanted to read my raw data into a really simple silver table. So I defined all my queries, and I can either run it directly one time, or I can come over to my workflows and I can actually create a job to run that notebook every day, every couple hours, whatever. As I'm building out these jobs and notebooks, you're going to find the Unity Catalog fills in the details. So if we come over here and go back, to look at our demo, let's look at the silver airlines. And we're going to go over to our lineage. We can see silver's referencing bronze. We can see our notebook that's defined. And we can see that there's a job. So as you're building out objects and as you're registering them to your catalogs, this view gets more and more complete. It fills in a greater picture. After I've run this notebook here for the first time, I can actually look at column definitions. I can also see sample data. Give it a few seconds. Waiting. Actually, this is a good point. Actually, I'll talk to this in a second. Ruthie, have we had any questions come in so far?
Nothing yet, but quick reminder, if anyone wants to add any questions, you can add them in the comments.
Awesome. So our sample data loaded, and so this is airlines. It's a really simple dimension here, a bunch of codes with descriptions. We can see a couple pages. Imagine if this were defined on top of thousands of files. No, you're not going to be able to page through and see all of your rows, but you can see enough to get a really good idea of what data lives inside of that table. We can also pull up permissions. And this is a good point that I didn't make earlier, but by default, all the objects that you create in Unity Catalog start out with the assumption that no one has access to them except for the owner or the creator. As you want to invite people in to see things, you have to explicitly invite them in. So in this case, I've invited my fellow admins. I gave them all privileges to this table, and my account users, these are just people who have access to the workspace. They only have select. I can grant more. I can actually revoke from here. But it is important to point out that Unity Catalog starts with that deny first mentality. History. This is just an idea of what's changed and when. You can see version 0 of my table. I've only run it once. This is where I ran my create table as select. You can also see some of the parameters. This was the job that ran it. This is an ID that points back to that notebook. As updates come in, as deletes come in, you're going to see this history table change over time. And of course, if you want to get a little more detail, you can also click into your insights, get a list of who's using it the most often, what dashboards, what notebooks, what table is this Silver.Airlines joined to most often. You're not seeing data here because it's just a demo environment. You're only going to be able to see what Rick does here. You can also see frequent queries run against this table. These will all fill in as we start using the data. So we come back over to our outline. We've seen the two silvers. This is another demo. This is where I wanted to define some Delta Live tables to start showing that up here in Unity Catalog. So in this case, I did it with SQL, create a refresh, live table, gave it an object name. Notice in this example, I am not defining a catalog or schema here. I'll show you why in a minute, but I am defining catalog, schema, and table for my source tables. And in this case, I'm setting up a dim airline, airport, and a fact table right here. So why don't I have to define these in the notebook? Well, if we come to our workflows, go to our Delta Live tables. This is my Delta Live table pipeline. When you set one up for the first time, and I want to go into settings. When you set up your Delta Live pipeline, you actually have to select Hive or Unity Catalog. In this case, I chose Unity Catalog. And you actually define your catalog and your target schema as a part of the pipeline, not as a part of the notebook that you're going to call. So this is a little different here. Everything else is the same as the Delta Live tables demo that I did last month. Shameless plug, go onto our site and you can find that recording. So once this runs, we expect we can come over here into our data object, our data explorer, go into Unity Catalog, go into Gold, and if we were to look at the lineage for any of these, you would expect to see that notebook I defined and the pipeline, right? But you don't. You do see the pipeline, but you can't see the notebook. And even more interesting, you can't see that I read that from the silver table. So as much as I love Unity Catalog and what it brings to managing your data, there are some bugs that still need to be worked out, and this is one of them. And the bug is basically this. When you define Delta Live tables, if you define them using the SQL Server language and all of their upstream dependencies were written in Python or written in a notebook that wasn't run as a Delta Live table, you will not see the lineage appear here. But I will show you that part of that data is in your information schema. So you can tell it is an issue Databricks is working on. But if I look here, nothing. And if I go over to my silver and look for downstream, gold is missing here too. So it doesn't work in either direction yet. Awesome. So that is, shows you the problem. Let's show you another feature called search. So if you've been paying attention in my Data Explorer view, you'll notice there's a filter here. And I can type in part of a table name and any catalog and schema that I've pivoted open will appear. Notice gold and silver, but not bronze. If I pivot open bronze, and now I type in air, now you see bronze, silver, and gold. But if you come up to your very top search and search, you will always see all of the tables or views that match your search term right here. So I've got some gold, silver, and bronze on this view. So this actually builds on a feature that was released just yesterday, which is tagging. So this is where you would want to go in and maybe define tables that have PII, or you might want to define columns that have PII. Search can also pull up tables that have those tags associated with it. So you can see tables that have columns that have these tags defined. You can also look for notebooks, jobs, queries, everything you saw in the lineage report. All of those will pop up as well. But this search functionality, and especially search on top of tags, this is really going to let your analysts find data more quickly without having to know catalog, schema, table, or view name. They may only know that they're looking for accounting data. And as long as you've tagged that data with accounting, you'll find it. You'll also be able to apply access controls based on these tags in a future update. So these tags really extend the search capability quite a bit. And last but not least, I mentioned Unity Catalog gives you information schema. So let's dive into what all can you pull out of this schema. So I'm going to pivot open our Data Explorer on the same page as our notebook. you'll notice that we have a schema here called system. There's information schema. So this would be all of our catalogs, all of the schemas in those catalogs, all the tables, even table of constraints, and all the columns in those tables, in those schemas, in those catalogs. All of that's right here. But you also have, under your system catalog, you've got your access schema. And in here, you've got an audit table. So if you've done any auditing with your Databricks instances, in the past, you would have had to go into the workspace setup, check the box that says that I want to start receiving those logs. You'd have to set up a storage account container. You'd have to configure the rights and permissions for Databricks to start writing the audit logs to that location. Then you'd have to come in and build transforms to start transforming the data out of files and maybe into a Delta table. And maybe you only want certain columns to come out of these audit logs. Well, now Databricks has done this heavy lift for you. Now it's just exposed those logs through your access schema right here. For those of you who haven't worked with any of the audit logging capabilities, I wanted to give you a quick tour. So I'm just going to pull the top 20 rows. What's in here? You can see workspace identifiers, which match the first part of my URL here, the 1472. Since you can have a Metastore hooked up to more than one workspace, it's important to include this so you know which workspace actually performed the task you're looking at. It's also tied to your account identifier. You're only going to have one of these across all of your Databricks workspaces. When the event happened, a date version of that instead of just the date time. Source IP of the request, what the person was using to make the request. So if you start digging through here, you're going to notice, especially on my workspaces, I'm connecting to Databricks through Visual Studio Code. You will see when your users are using VS Code versus just using the website for their code. Session identifiers, these are pretty much unique to each session. So I'm logged in now. In cases of null session ID, you could be looking at admin tasks occurring. You can also see internal jobs won't have a session identifier. A couple other cases, you can see who performed the event. This one was me. You can tell that what service was used. Is it the account level? Is it the workspace level? You'll be able to tell that here. You can tell how that user was authenticated. Was it through an Azure Active Directory login? Was it through a personal access token? You can see both. Then we skip over here. You can see what parameters were sent to the request. So in the case of a query, you can see the query that was requested. If it was a notebook, you can see the notebook ID that was run, the cell identifier that was run. You can find what Databricks did with this request. Most of the time you're going to see status 200s. That means it happened. No real response other than, hey, it happened. Then a unique event identifier. That's all well and good, but what can we get out of this audit log? Scroll down here. I've got a query for you here that lists all the different actions that occur in your audit log. So you can see here, get table, someone queried a table, someone retrieved data from a table, someone executed a query, someone deleted a notebook, someone created a notebook. You can find permission elevations in here. So when someone was granted higher level access, you can see when someone was granted access or denied access to a given object. You can see when someone's just listing the catalogs out of your Unity catalog. That's in here. You can see when someone makes an update to your Unity catalog. Run succeeded, a notebook finished running. execute saved query. I can see when Rick finished some of his work. So all of that's here. If you need a lookup of what these different actions mean, there is a page in documentation that basically tells you in plain English. I'm throwing up air quotes around that one. In mostly plain English, what these mean. Sometimes you just have to explore the data to figure it out. But with that in hand, we can now start asking more interesting questions of our audit log. We can start asking who's accessed which tables in the last 24 hours. So you can see I'm actually digging into some of that JSON here. I'm looking for cases of create table, get table, or delete table. And my results show me, oops, Eric accessed Databricks usage, blueprint, SKU cost lookup. Actually, he deleted it. Here's when he deleted it. You can see I access system lineage, column lineage. I was just selecting data out of it. That's when it happened. So getting a little more interesting now, right? What permissions were changed? You run this, you can see what permission to what securable was changed and what it was changed to. So getting more interesting now. I mentioned incomplete data lineage in a previous demo. We can actually start looking at column and table lineage. So let's take a look at.
And Shannon,
Yes.
I just want to let you know we do have a couple questions that have come into the chat.
Awesome.
So whenever you're ready, just let me know and I can put them up on the screen for you.
Okay. Actually, let's go ahead and take them, and then I will drop back into. I know I'm not supposed to type in a demo, but I'm going to do it anyway. Go ahead and hit me with the first question.
Okay, here we go. It's up on the screen as well, but similar to how Delta Lake tables support default catalogs and schemas, can you set a default catalog on a cluster so that you don't have to use the 3-level namespace when reading from or writing to a catalog within a notebook?
If it's possible, I haven't found out how to do it. When I define each of my Delta Live tables, I do have to select a catalog for all of the table create statements to run against. Optionally, if I omit the schema for that catalog, it will put it in the default schema of that catalog. So you can't completely omit it. You're going to have to include it. Now on your source, so if you do select, some columns from another table that is registered in your Unity catalog, yes, you need to use all 3 in that definition, or the pipeline will fail, telling you it can't find the object that you're looking for.
Awesome, thank you.
Hope that helps.
Second question that we had come in is tagging at only on the table level, and can you assign multiple tags to a table?
Great question. So I'm actually going to answer it with a demo. So let's come in here to my catalog. You can define tags at the catalog level. Oh, I'll call it Bob. Oops. I didn't add the tag Bob yet. So let's add a tag called Bob. And then we're going to tag that onto our catalog. So you can tag at catalog, schema, and object level, and you can have more than one tag. The trick's going to be if you set up tags around things like PII and you want to have a positive like PII true, and you want to also have a tag negative, PII false. If you put both onto an object, it's going to turn up in both search results. So if you search for PII true or false, if you tagged both onto that object, you're going to get both back. And you can see I'm going to add Bob here. And now I have both. And the table and at the column level. So you can tag it at every level. Does that help?
Great. Thanks, Shannon.
Awesome. Any others?
That's it for right now.
Awesome. Let's pop back over and roll down to that query. Ooh, not there. Oops. So I want to point out how in the table lineage, it does have the two partial records for our DLT case. You're going to see the source data missing from some of that DLT, and then on other records, you're going to see the destination missing from some of those. I have a feeling the fix for this is going to be Databricks needs to connect those two records together to where it shows you source to destination for your DLT pipelines. Oh, my cluster stopped. Oops. All right. So I'm not going to be able to show you, but that I will include that in an update later. Basically, you'll see two halves of the same record not connected, and that's the bug. Also in here, if you want to start querying your bill, for at least from the Databricks point of view, if you want to start seeing your DBU consumption, that's here in system.billing. And in this case, you can see our workspace, more than one workspace. You can see what the charge it was for, so what the DBU charge was for. In this case, premium serverless SQL compute in the West. When it happened, what the unit, how many units. What you're going to notice is missing here. How much did that cost me in dollars? That's not going to be here. You will have to know that and look that up to apply to turn this DBU into a cost. Or you can always check out our Lakehouse Optimizer and we'll put it together for you. In addition to those DBUs, you're going to see a little bit of extra information here. So in cases of clusters, you'll see your cluster identifiers, cluster names. In the cases of job runs, you'll find your job identifiers. All that's right here. And of course, this information schema is the last one I'm going to show before handing things off to Rick. If we pop open system, I think I've already pointed this out once. You can query your catalogs, schemas, or schemata in this case, tables and views, and columns. And you'll also notice now that tags are available. You see column tags. You'll also see tags pop up in a few other places as well. And that's it for me for Unity Catalog. Now Rick's going to show you how you can actually use this to do something more interesting than, hey, look.
Yeah, hi folks. My name is Rick Freitas. I am a senior business intelligence engineer at Blueprint and also manage our team of BI engineers and been here for just over 2.5 years. So excited to show you some newer features here in SQL Analytics. So currently I'm in the SQL editor right now, and we'll walk through a couple of these other items that are under the SQL workspace here. First of all, what I want to do is just kind of give you an overview of what we're going to try to accomplish here. So as I've done in prior demos here, is I traditionally have kind of just pulled in 3 or 4 different queries, and we'll run those, show you the results, and then we'll create some visualizations from those, and then we'll pin it to a dashboard. So we're going to do things a little bit differently today because there is a newer feature that I'll show you that's just been released here in August that's kind of a game changer. Now, it's in public preview right now, but and we'll talk a little bit more about it here in just a minute, but let's just kind of ground you a little bit on the SQL editor UI here. So not uncommon to what you typically see in any SQL editor, right? We've got the query editor space. Your results are going to be showing down here in a table. You've got some options here that we'll talk about in just a minute. And then on the left side, you've got your 3-tiered namespace. And so we've got our catalog and then our schema and then our tables or views. We've got views in this case. So I'm going to be using this catalog. I'm going to be using the gold schema and then these 3 tables. And so the first thing from an analytics perspective that I always want to do is just quickly kind of profile my data so I understand what I'm dealing with. And you'll see why in just a second as we talk about this newer feature that I'm going to utilize. So let's just hover over here. I'm going to look at the facts flights. I could insert the table name into this query, but don't need to do that. I can actually, excuse me, up here, I can actually do a couple other things. I could copy the table path, open in Data Explorer, which Shannon showed, add to favorites, or preview in a new tab. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to preview in a new tab here. And basically, it's going to run these results automatically, and it's going to show me what's in this table. So I can get a really good sense right off the bat that we've got a lot of KPIs and numeric values in here. Things are broken out by year and month. I've got a, looks like a key for my airline and a key for my destination airport and my origin airport. And then if I come over and look across here, looks like we're aggregating flights at that year-month level based on the airline. So good to know. I understand what's now in this table, which is going to help me in my next step. Let's go ahead and quickly take a look at our DIM airport. We're just going to preview a new tab here. And pretty simple here. It looks like I've got a key for my airport. And I've also got the description of it. And I would assume that I probably got something similar for airlines. So let's just take a quick look. Good. I've got code and I've got description for my airport here. All right. So now I've got a pretty good indication of the 3 different tables I'm working with. Now, like I said before, what I typically did is I'd copy and paste in some either very easy query or a very complex one that's got a bunch of joints and stuff. So I'm not really lazy, I don't think. I think I'm more efficient than lazy. So I'm going to utilize a newer tool called Assistant here in the SQL editor or in Databricks as a whole. And this is really the equivalent of ChatGTP. And so just so you got a little bit of information on it, let's go ahead and open up the link for that and just tell you. So it's actually in public preview right now. So I'll tell you, not everything's probably working as it will be expected when we get to GA. And it does look like there's going to be some cost involved in that if you do turn that on at some point. The other thing that I want to call out that it is utilizing, as it says down here, it's utilizing the OpenAI API as well as Azure OpenAI as the services that it's utilizing. So just so you're clear on that. So we're going to go ahead and actually utilize Assistant here and see what we get for results. So I'm going to start with 3 different queries. We'll do those separately. I'm going to start with a very simple one. And again, I mean, I could type this out, but why? Let's go ahead and have the Assistant. As I had explained, I'm a BI engineer. I'm using ChatGTP every single day for either my specialty is in Power BI, so either for DAX measures or for writing out SQL queries that I need to do. So I want to do the same thing here. So I have already created a couple of prompts here, and I'll drop one of them, the very easiest one in here. So basically asking it to give me the sum of flights column, being very explicit here, from, again, my catalog, my schema goal, and then my view, fact flights. So let's go ahead and run this and see what it gives me over here. So, all right. So like we do in many of the AI tools, and I didn't state this earlier, but if you've seen any conferences for Databricks here in the last year, or at least this year, very big push on AI and LLMs, large language models, not unlike a lot of other companies, but they are really moving fast to kind of get this stuff out there. So just wanted to call that out. So not unlike what you'd see from other AI tools, you get the code that you wanted here. Let's go ahead and expand this out a little bit. Then a fairly decent summary. The assistant, the last piece seems to be one of the reasons in public preview. It gives just some random information. I'm not quite sure why. But as you noticed here, I opened a new query. Opening a new query is just clicking this plus sign and go to either create new query or open existing query. The reason I did that is because what I want to do is I want to drop this code right into this query window by just using this replace current code button. So I'm going to go ahead and run this and see the results that I get. So again, very simple one. I could have typed this in, but why? Why not? If it's going to do it right and it's going to do it for me quickly, I'm going to utilize it. So this is the number that I'm expecting to get, just under 170 million of flights over this data set. To be clear, we've got a U.S. flights data set that's open source data that you can get and bring in. So that's what we're using here. So I've got my total flights. That's great. It's in this table, but do I want to display that in my dashboard? No, not really. So let's go ahead and create a visualization, just a very simple visualization. This one, I'm just going to use counter, which is same as like a card in other visualizations. And I'm just going to call this total flights. All right, let's go ahead and save that. And then really important, I need to save this query if I'm going to pick it up from a dashboard perspective. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and hit save, and I'll just call it the same thing, total flights. Hit save. All right, 1 down, 2 to go. They're going to progressively get a little bit harder for the assistant here. The third one, when we get there, will be a crapshoot to see what it gives me, because it's been giving me different results throughout the last several days as I've been setting up this demo. So anyways, let's go ahead and move to the next one. All right. Again, let's just drop this in there. Now, I could be typing these in, but just to save time, since we've only got about 15 minutes left, I am I'm copying and pasting them in here. So create me a query that returns sum of flights per year. So I'm adding a year column up to 2022. And so it should be a where clause in there. I'm adding up to 2022 because I don't have complete data for 2023. And so I don't want whatever visual I'm using to be skewed in some shape or form. So let's go ahead and run this. And let's go ahead and drop this into a new query window. All right. And let's take a look at what it gave me. So it summed my flights, which is good. We looked, as we profiled our data, we saw we had a flights column. It's giving me a year column. Good. I think this is going to work. And then I've got my where clause here. So let's go ahead and drop this in. Again, very easy just to use this replace current code button. Let's go ahead and run this and see what our results are. All right. So, oh, and interestingly enough, I didn't even ask it to order by year, but it went ahead and did that for me, which is interesting because a couple times it has and a couple times it hasn't. So I find that interesting that it's put that. Now, I want to be clear here too. So one of the things I found out in the testing over the last several days is that if you've got saved queries that are doing similar, it's going to mine those queries first and give you the exact same results. I only noticed that because in some of my queries before, I had that where clause of 2022. And when I didn't even ask for it, it was giving me that. So it told me that it was actually finding a previous one. So I went ahead and actually deleted all of my prior queries before we started this session, just to make sure that it was doing this on the fly. But that's also very good in the case that you've got many SQL queries that have been saved out there that you don't know that's out there and you don't want to go look for it, where you're just asking the assistant to go do this for you, but it's not good for demo purposes. So anyways, we've got this one in here. These numbers look pretty good to me. One of the other features, so we've used visualization. One of the other features is a filter. So if you've ever used Excel or Power BI, there's a slicer that you can put into your presentation or into your presentation layer or your report, whatever, or your sheet in Excel. And it's nothing more than just a way to filter your data down to a specific, time range or dimensional field, whether it be geo, location, or something else. It's the same thing. Now, there's also the parameter feature here, which in essence does the same thing, but it's a little bit more complex. And I actually get a sense that Databricks is going to probably decommission that at some time. The filter function is more new and it's easier to utilize. The parameter, you have to actually add some things into the SQL query. So we're not going to go into that one specifically because it could probably take up the next 15 minutes, but we're going to just use filter here. And so I'm going to go ahead and choose that filter button. I've got which column do I want to filter on? I could actually filter on this numeric column, but really what I'm wanting to do here is year. I could change this to multi-select and sort order ascending and highlight relevant values. I actually haven't seen that actually working, but just maybe due to the data set. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save there. And you actually see now you get a little filter here that I could utilize to actually change the query right here, and/or we'll be able to use it in the dashboard when we're there. So, and in fact, if I had multiple queries that had year in it, it would pick up all of those. But in this case, since we're just trying to keep this pretty small due to time constraints, I've only got one query here that's using year. So great. So we've got a year filter set up here. Let's go ahead and set up a visualization. By default, looks like it's just giving me a scatter. Really don't want scatter. Let's go ahead and give me line. Automatically populating the x-axis and the y-axis, which is great. Don't have to do that by default. Data's looking about right to me. Obviously, 2020 COVID, we see flights completely dip away. And then we've got 2021, 2022 bringing up. We've got 2023 with more, but then it drops completely off the end, which is why I filtered that out with a where clause. So we're going to go ahead and save this. And then we're going to save the query. And let's call this flights by, let's spell flights by year. And save this one. And then let's do one other. Create new query. So this one is interesting, and I'll explain to you a couple reasons why I did this specific one. So this one is certainly a little bit more complex, but I'm asking it to create me a query so I can use the sand key visual. That's key in here because I wanted to see if it knew anything about the sand key visual that's here in Databricks, and whether it would do something specific for me. And we'll talk about that in a second. So, and then as you know, if you're using any of the AI tools, very explicit in my prompt here about what table I want, what column I want, and specifically what to use for my join. And then I'm telling it limit the origin and destination pairs to top 10. So I will tell you, I've had this work flawlessly several times. I've had it work not so well several other times. So let's expand this out a little here so I can get a better idea. So this one is looking somewhat familiar. Let's drop this in and see what it does. So yeah, select. So I'm gonna see if I can let's go ahead and run it. I know it's going to give me errors on this because it's not aliasing what I need here. And again, I think part of this is because we're in public preview, that it's just, and this is actually different than what I've seen in about, I'll be honest here. It's probably about 30 or 40 times that I've done this. Let's see what Fix My Code does. I haven't had terribly good luck on Fix My Code. Name. No, I don't think that's going to work either. But let's go ahead and drop this in and see. I think it's going to call out name. Yeah. So name. Let's see. Well, guys, instead of me spending a little bit of time, because I know we're running out of time. Again, I've had this working. I knew that this was going to be a little risky to run this. So it's having challenges. It has worked in a few cases that I've done it. I've had a couple of these where I knew what it really wanted me to change, and I could go through that part to do it. So instead of wasting more of your time on that, let's just go ahead and type in the actual one that I need. So let's just bring it over, run this. Always a risk doing things live in a demo, but we should have the right one here. So what I wanted to show you, in fact, one of the things I wanted to call out that it was a sand key visual is that your this, and I think we've got time here. So let's just call this flights, and let's call this flights. I just want to show this to you. The reason I called out the sand key visuals, I wanted it to trigger or give me what is needed for the sand key visual in here, which if we look here and see, please provide value column. So it wants, depending on the numeric value, it doesn't care. It wants that, and in fact, it's case sensitive, to be honest with you, which is really odd to me. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this, discard. Let's change this back to value. In fact, let's just ask it to do that for me. And it should do that in 2 spots. Again, I know I could have done that, but let's just see if it can get that right. So it does look like it got that right. So let's bring that back over here. Let's run. Oh, what didn't it like from that? Value. Maybe I had a line selected, and that's what was causing the issue there. Okay, great. So now we've got what we want. Now if we go into visualization, we should be able to use the sand key. So again, I'm feeling like it's made good progress on the assistant, but we still got a ways to go for it to be, I think, equivalent to what we're getting out of ChatGTP today. So this is exactly what I wanted. So these city pairs. So I've got the flight totals. I've got it broken out from origin to destination. Let's go ahead and save this, and then let's make sure we save this query as well. So. And we'll just call it flight city pairs to make it easy. Great. Okay, so now we've gone through and created basically 3 different queries. Again, just to be clear here, you get a results window and you get a visualization if you go and create one. Visualization is based off of the results, and anything that you're trying to do to create a dashboard must have its own separate query here. Now, we could have created a query that brings a lot of things together and gives you more information at once. I'm just doing this because I really wanted to show how the assistant is working currently today, again, in public preview. So let's go ahead and switch over to dashboards. And I'm going to create a new dashboard, and let's call this flights demo, and hit save. This is going to drop me into just a plain UI here for the dashboard. I'm in editing mode, so now I can add a couple of different things. I can add a visualization. I could add a text box, which just drops a box at the top that you can type any text that has markup. We'll skip that. And then filter, as it says, is new here. And we'll show that in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my total flights. And so it gives me total flights up here, select existing visualization. It actually chose the one that I selected. I could show my table as the results table if I wanted, but obviously for this, I want to just show the visualization. And so let's go ahead. I got cleaned up the title a little there, and let's go ahead and drop it in here. Now you can see I've got a grid system here. I can change the size of this, move this around. I could drag this to somewhere else on the screen. We'll go ahead and leave it this size for now. I might resize it once I add a couple other things. Actually, let's just, I know that I probably want it about there. So let's go ahead and bring in another visualization, flights by year. And this time it pulled results instead of the chart. Not sure why sometimes it does that and not the other. Go ahead and hit delete there just to clean up the title, add the dashboard. Got my visualization here, which is my flights by year. That's fine. Again, like a lot of good visualization tools, hover over things, you get a tooltip there on what's going on. I like that feature. Let's add the last one that we did here, flight city pairs. This time it came to the Sankey one instead of the table results, which is good. And we'll go ahead and clean up this title. Could add a description to this if I wanted to, but won't in this case. And then again, kind of drag this around so I can get a little bit better view of this. Again, hovering over things gives you a really good indication of what's going on here, the number of flights, where LA International is going to over here. So really like this visual. Some very nice visuals in here. And then when I'm done, I can hit done editing. Now, the one thing that I forgot to do here is on this one. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong way to do it. Let's go ahead and get rid of that one, and let's add it one more time, because I missed pointing out one thing to you as I was moving so fast here. Flights by year. We're going to use the chart. Aha, down here, add existing query filter. You remember in the query that we created, I added the year filter. If I select this, then it adds it to the top of the dashboard. And so, and then brings in, yeah, it should bring it in. Okay, it's down here. Let's drag it up here and let's resize it. Pretty simple to do. And brings that in here. So again, if I had multiple queries here that had a year in the query itself, then I could utilize this this filter and then change the data relative to that year. Obviously, this total flights and these city pairs isn't using any year for it. And then I'm done. I can hit done editing here, and really in a period of about 13 minutes. Or a little bit more, we've created 3 queries and we've created a dashboard. Wow, we really went through that quickly. Let me pause when we've got a minute left here to see if there's any questions on what was created.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rick. Let me take a look to see if we have any questions. We don't have any at the moment, but if you'd like to add a question, feel free to add them into the comments. And we do have a way for you to ask questions after this as well. feel free to email us at info@bpcs.com, and we'll make sure to get back to you if you have any questions on that. Anything else you would like to add, Shannon or Rick, before we wrap things up?
The only other thing I'll add. Go ahead, Shannon.
I was just going to point out all the work that Rick's done. Rick, since you've got the screen up, if you will click into Data Explorer, into our catalog gold fact flights, everyone will see that the work you've done with new queries now appears in Lineage, as well as the dashboard you just created.
Go to Lineage.
Yep. And then you can click on dashboards or queries. Yeah, either one.
Yeah, okay, yeah. How about dashboards?
Yep, there's your dashboards. I actually have a more up-to-date view than you've got if we want to switch back to me.
Oh, there we go. It just took a minute to populate.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yep. So there's your flight
and you can see it's actually showing some things that I have in the wastebasket, or that I removed. So because you can see some like in dashboards here. So I've actually done this multiple times today, but then removed them, put them in the trash. So cool. Thank you for that. And then the only other thing I was going to say is that you do have the ability to connect to third-party presentation layer tools from Databricks, right? So if you wanted to use the Tableau or the Power BI or any other of the tools, there's a very easy way to do that. So you can get the connection information from your SQL warehouse, going in here and going into the connection details. Like for Power BI, all you need is that and your HTTP path. So
fantastic. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate all the work you did to put together this presentation. It's been super informational, and we hope that everyone viewing it has found this really valuable as well. Once again, if you have any questions, you can always email us at info@bpcs.com. But we really encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn. That way you will see all of the most up-to-date workshops, webinars, and demos that we have lined up. We do have one every Wednesday, except the one in Labor Day week, but every Wednesday through October. So please do join us for the next one. I'm going to add a link in the comments for the next one that we have coming up. So feel free to just click on that and hit accept to be notified of that webinar. But thank you all for joining, and thanks again, Rick and Shannon. We hope to see you at the next one.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.